Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler, author of A Saga on Home Video, and this time we are looking at something that's a little bit different. It's tangential somewhat to the Star Wars Home Video Library, but ties directly into something we have seen before on the show, so I have added it to my Star Wars Home Video Library. You might as well if you are into the one release that it ties into that I find particularly fascinating here. The release that's in question is tied into this one that we have seen before. You may recall that the story behind this is pretty interesting. This is A New Hope dubbed into the Navajo language, entirely dubbed, full cast, into the Navajo language. It was part of an effort to try to use pop culture to help preserve that particular language for future generations, as many Native American languages are dying out at this point. According to a statistic in what we're going to look at here, I believe that at the time of 1492, there were something like 300 different native languages being spoken. As of now, it's more like 170, and the projection is that if nothing is done to help preserve these languages beyond what's being done now, then by 2050, it'd be more like 20. So we're talking about languages themselves that, because no one is speaking them or using them frequently anymore, that are effectively dying out in terms of common usage. And we need to be cognizant of being able to preserve those languages in some form. Again, lest they die out. I find this fascinating because I am a history teacher, among other things. I teach all kinds of different social studies courses, but history is one of them. So I always found this to be a particularly fascinating and interesting release here. That Manuelito Wheeler, Manny Wheeler from the Navajo Nation Museum, would take it upon himself to get the permission of Lucasfilm and gather up a team, doing auditions and all that kind of stuff, to actually dub the entirety of A New Hope in the Navajo spoken language. I would point out, by the way, that if you can't get your hands on this was hard to come by. This is something that was available through Walmart online for a while. Before that, only through the Navajo Nation Museum and whatnot. So kind of tough to come by still at this point, but you can sometimes find it online. You can go on Disney Plus, and as one of the bonus features for A New Hope, you can watch the Navajo version. However, what they did basically was they took the Navajo audio from this, which is from 2013, and put it on the 2019 McClunky edition, so that basically there's a little space, because McClunky doesn't get translated anyway. So it's kind of like you have all the audio up to McClunky, then McClunky from that cut, and then the rest of the Navajo stuff after that, which still lines up perfectly. But in making that sort of slightly different cut of the Navajo edition, they changed the opening crawl so you don't get the Navajo opening crawl anymore. But in any event, I always found that fascinating and loved the story behind it. And Matthew Hardesty happened to spot a clip that pointed me to a show on PBS, America's public broadcasting service channel, that actually was talking about that process and talking about that language preservation effort through Star Wars. And it turns out that there's actually a home video release of the special that the clip is from, or the program that clip about the Star Wars Navajo edition is from, which is why I purchased this and added it to my Star Wars Home Video Library. This is Season 2 of the television series from PBS, Native America. It says, "This is us told by us," PBS logo up there. I ordered this through the PBS website. I believe you can order it elsewhere like Amazon and such, but it has PBS, it has a little image there, Native America, Season 2, the little 2 there, for 2-disc set, not for Season 2, and a product number down there. Back information, which I'll read through at least as far as the introduction and the episode in question. Images from it, cast crew type information here, runtime widescreen, English stereos, Region 1 NTSC, English subtitles, and so on. Legalese, the company here, Providence Pictures, and then PBS. Thank you. With each purchase, you're helping support public television for all. Visit pbs.org. There's just a little advertisement here for, like PBS Masterpiece, PBS Kids, PBS Living, and so on. And then you have 2 discs in the set. We'll actually look at the second disc, because that is where the episode in question is going to be. But they're labeled the same, just with the different episode labels and such. So Native America, Season 2, it'll be Disc 1 or Disc 2. Names of the episodes here, in this case, Women Rule and Language is Life. The other one's episodes are called New Worlds and Warrior Spirit. then the Providence Pictures logo, PBS logo, DVD video, and then all your legalese, copyright down there, and then way down at the bottom, the SDH logo for the subtitles, and then NTSC. It does not have the region actually on the disc itself. So what you have here is a series of episodes, 4 episodes total, that are all basically about an hour long, an hour with commercials and stuff taken out type length, so like 50 some odd minutes, give or take. But episodes that are all about Native American culture in light of sort of modern perspectives on it, essentially. Modern perspectives looking back on things, cultural heritage and stuff like that. It reads on the back here, kind of setting up what the series is about. Native America illuminates the beauty and power of contemporary Indian country in this native-directed series. Follow the Native American artists, engineers, and leaders drawing upon deep traditions to build a better 21st century. Then you have the descriptions of the 3 episodes that do not relate to this topic, which are New World's Warrior Spirit and Women Rule, and the one that is related to Star Wars Home Video here, Language is Life. Celebrate the power of native languages and the inspirational people who are saving them. From secret recordings to Star Wars films dubbed in Navajo, follow the revolutionary steps transforming Native America. So, basically, where this ties into this is that the episode in question is all about preserving native language. Not Navajo in particular, but multiple. Passamaquoddy being one of the ones focused on. And looking at ways that it's being preserved. Either people speaking it in real life, they talk about sort of the reasons why native languages were suppressed at certain points within American history to try to, what was the line? Like suppress or kill or whatever the savage Indian person and save the man or whatever it was, right? To essentially force assimilation and force to some degree Christianization of the different groups and so on. But it talks about how those different things cause language to diminish. And at different points, even in recent history, speaking a native language was frowned upon in some schools and whatnot, such that a lot of families didn't teach their children the language, and just slowly but surely that is causing a generational collapse of the languages themselves. But to sort of get the hook in here, the initial portion and some of the through line of it focuses on that Navajo release. It starts with like a drive-in movie theater, playing it in Navajo, and talks to a Manny Wheeler. Manny Wheeler shows up throughout this, talking about the process and talking about language preservation issues, why he did that for A New Hope. You get a chance to actually see the people who did the voice work, the voiceover work for Tarkin, Leia, and C-3PO, and sort of talking about that process. You get to see a bit about one of the showings and people actually coming to get this signed at the showing and whatnot. Pretty cool stuff there. And then as it jumps out, it talks about the wax cylinders that are now allowing languages that were preserved on it, that recorded in like the late 1800s, to actually be heard and carried on generation to generation as certain dances and language, as songs and stuff changed from one to another, one generation to another, that sort of thing. The reclaiming of native lands, the ability to use new types of technologies to see through things like graffiti to get grasps on things like the Cherokee written language and why that even came about in the first place to try to preserve the language when it didn't have a written component for a while. All these stories happening, but it starts out with the Star Wars stuff, goes into one of those, comes back to Manny Wheeler talking with the family and such, goes back out, comes back to Manny Wheeler talking about the Star Wars and the other preservation efforts on film. And then one of the latter segments is on something he was able to do as a result of the Navajo success of A New Hope's translation, which is A Fistful of Dollars, the Clint Eastwood film. And then eventually touching on the fact that they also did Finding Nemo a little bit later and so on. And what goes into that, and trying to come up with ways to like know what the language would be, but you still need to make it sort of match the amount of time the mouth is moving, excuse me. So in doing so, how do you make that work? Oh, it sounds like they've got a cigar in their mouth, like for Fistful of Dollars. Put a pin in your mouth as you talk, so it sounds like that. Just the efforts that were gone into to make this work in terms of that broader effort, with Star Wars being sort of the centerpiece initially of that before they move on to talking about A Fistful of Dollars. So if you are interested in the story behind this, and more importantly, if you're interested in why this moment, in filmmaking, in language preservation was so important, then the Language is Life episode of this will be particularly interesting to you. And it does have that Star Wars content. One of the only times we have any kind of behind-the-scenes stuff for this is found on that episode here. The series itself is interesting, but again, this is a Star Wars home video thing, so we'll focus in on the Star Wars content here. So you'd be getting this Season 2, not Season 1, no Star Wars stuff there. Season 2 for the last episode of the 4, Language is Life. That's the one you'd want to check out if you have an interest in this. I was fascinated by it. I find it interesting, but again, that's sort of my bailiwick because that's the kind of stuff that I teach as a social studies teacher. And thank you to Matthew Hardesty for pointing that out, by the way. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers, regardless of what language you're watching in.